first pastorate was in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And I can remember there was someone that moved into a house right beside the church. It was a young couple, and I noticed that they had purchased a used vehicle. And we were living in South Carolina, and it had a North Carolina tag on it. Well, I waited several weeks, but I noticed that the North Carolina tag never got replaced with the South Carolina tag. And so I went to the young man, and I wanted to kind of give him an overview. I had a feeling that that he probably wasn't putting insurance on that vehicle. And I wanted to let him know how serious of an offense that was in South Carolina. And so I walked over to him and I told him, I said, I just want to kind of tell you something about my experience as a state trooper. I said, I notice you have a North Carolina tag on that vehicle, and the time has run out for you to get a South Carolina tag. I said, so if you were to get stopped and you didn't have the proper tag, it would merely be a fine. They would write you a ticket. You would have to pay a fine. It's not that big of a deal. It would just cost you money. I said, but if you do not have insurance on that car, I said, it's a bigger deal. I said, they won't just write you a ticket. They will take you to jail. You can't get out of jail until you're bonded out. And then if you're convicted, you will lose your driver's license for 30 days. I said, not having insurance is a big deal. I said, so I just wanted you to be able to see that big picture. And he assured me. He said, oh, don't you worry, I've got it. I said, well, I need to tell you one more thing, and I don't want you to be offended by this. I said, but because I am explaining this to you, if for some reason you don't have insurance, and if you get arrested, feel free to call me, but the church will not bail you out of jail. I said, I'm giving you fair warning now. Well, a few weeks went by, and honestly, I did not make any phone calls. But a few weeks went by, and the next thing I know, the phone's ringing at the church. And sure enough, he's been arrested for operating uninsured. I tried to show him the big picture, but he didn't accept to see it. Well, my name is Richard Coleman, and I'm the pastor at Shepherd Church of the Nazarene in Lexington, South Carolina, and it's great to spend just a few moments with you today. Looking at the book of James, James is giving practical insight to the Jewish church that has left Jerusalem, and they're living all over the place in areas where other people don't believe in God. And so they have a lot of things happening in their life, a lot of temptations, and trying to figure out the right things to do. And so part of the advice that James is giving is, he says, if you want wisdom as a new Christian, ask God for it. Well, years ago, someone gave me the Christian definition of wisdom, and I've tried to always remember that. And so the Christian definition of wisdom is being able to see life just a little bit the way God sees it. In other words, to be able to see the bigger picture. As humans, we have a tendency of just focusing on ourselves, or just with the people that are right around us, maybe our family or friends, and we're not able to look at the bigger picture. And so when we ask for wisdom, then we're asking God, show us the bigger picture so I can look beyond just me and my circumstance. James tells us, he said, whenever you ask God for wisdom, that we need to have the faith to do something with the wisdom that he gives us. He said if we don't have the faith to be able, in other words, God shows us the right thing and he shows us the big picture. But if we say, well, I don't care about the big picture because I want to do what's best for me, so I'm going to ignore the big picture. James says, then we become like a wave in the ocean. where we go up really high and we think we're going to be something, and the next thing you know, we just flatten right out and we don't accomplish anything at all. And he tells us that if we do that, if we have a divided loyalty, is what James calls it. He said, if we have a divided loyalty, then God is not going to honor our request for wisdom. In other words, we ask him to show us, and when he does, we do nothing with it. Then the next time we ask, he's not going to give us that wisdom. I can't help but think about people that have come to me for counseling, and they say, "Oh, I'm in a terrible mess. I can't explain to you all the different scenarios that people have come to me with. It's whether they have a spouse and a boyfriend or a girlfriend in addition to their spouse, or whatever it may be, that people have just gotten themselves into such predicaments. And they come to me and they want me to give them the answer that will get them out of all of this mess. And I base my answers on the Bible. And so if someone comes to me and they're tied up in adultery or whatever it may be, if there is some commandment that they're violating, then my answer has to be that they're going to have to quit doing the thing that goes against God's will. And they're going to have to ask God to forgive them of their sins. And that is the beginning of how to get out of their predicament. And just about every time that someone comes to me with these type of predicaments, especially where sin is involved, they don't always use these words, but kind of what they don't ever come back again for a second counseling time. So basically what they're saying is, I don't want the advice that you're giving me. I don't like your answer. James is telling us, he's saying, ask God for wisdom. God wants to give us wisdom. He wants to give us a better overview of what his will is in our life. But our responsibility in that is to be able to say, okay, I see the bigger picture and I know what I need to do. And so therefore, I'm going to start doing it. So that's my encouragement to you as we move into this year, continue into 2025, is that we ask God to show us, and when he does, that we do everything we can to live up to what God wants us to do. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. May you truly accept the wisdom that God has to offer. Thanks for taking the time and viewing today.